So there's forces in play in anyone's life that kind of help evolve them forward or not. And my personal opinion, you're alive to try to evolve forward. And the business is kind of a microcosm of that. You're trying to evolve your business forward. There's forces in play in your market, in your product. How did you talk to people that affect, and most importantly, the force of time, that affects your results. And so you got to be aware of those when you're taking any strategy and trying to use it in your business or in your life, kind of a life strategy to evolve.
Welcome to Modern Entrepreneur. Today we have Scott Desgrosseilliers, who is a data and analytics guru and the founder and CEO of Wicked Reports, which is one of the top subscription-based marketing analytics platforms around today. Prior to his Wicked Reports venture, he played a key role at Motorola as a data architect and led global programming teams for 10 years. Scott brings a simple, common sense approach to the complex world of data-driven marketing. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm jazzed.
So, man, your unique skill set. Tell me about that. You have a unique skill set.
And I have one that came to me, and I've always been driven this way, in that I love to use data to solve puzzles. So when I was even 12 years old, I would be on family vacations, and I would be obsessed with trying to predict the dog races or the horse track results.
No way.
And my parents probably thought I was a degenerate gambler like my dad. No, he wasn't that bad. But I'd have the books out, we'd be on vacation, and I'd be scoring the programs. They'd be like, "What are you doing?" I'd be like, "I want to try to see if I can predict who's going to win."
And could you?
And that's, sometimes I could. I had a pretty good little system. Good with horses, so with the standard breds. They sit in the carts. I did pretty well with that. It was before like speed ratings and all that came out. I was a little ahead of the curve, and I was just obsessed with it. The idea that you could take this numbers and make sense of it and use it to predict the future, or at least attempt to, it was just fascinating to me.
And that just drove your career
Pretty much. I went from that to be a day trader, and this was in like 96, 97, where people knew what it was. I used to have to call on the phone to make the trades and go in somewhere and have a special phone to download the stock prices.
Oh my gosh.
And loved it, and then I worked for a firm where we'd bet against the public. So when people would have the $20 broker trades, it was a new thing in like 97, it's because we would pay just for the right to bet against them, because we had all these other analytics we could use. So I've always just been involved with that.
Yeah.
And then when I got into Motorola, they were really into tracking everything. And they'd be, people had to know, it was hard to communicate before, nowadays Slack and instant video conferencing, well, this is like 2001 and 2. You didn't really know what was the status of the project. What am I supposed to be working on? You got 25,000 people. You got to figure out how they're all going to know what to do. So I architected the systems behind that, led the teams that did that.
Wow. And then your current venture, Wicked Reports, is a pretty heady piece of software that helps marketers who are typically spending money or at least time doing content figure out what's working and what's not. And tell me about that.
Yeah, so the idea came to me through a couple friends that were running their online businesses. They were struggling with trying to figure out if their Facebook advertising was working.
Right.
And so I looked around trying to help them, because I was doing some side data consulting just because it was kind of fun.
Yeah.
And it was like, geez, there doesn't seem to be anything out there. So I jerry-rigged something up to hack up a solution, told a few people about it. Whenever I told anyone, they wanted it.
Yeah.
And so then I slowly, incrementally started to build it. Hired a programmer to help me with some things that I had hacked up that I didn't love. And then, but I would run all the data myself for a long time. And then as each challenge came, like your speaker last year, Ryan Halliday, the obstacle is the way. Yeah. And that's kind of, I iteratively grew it based on what's the most problematic thing with trying to figure out what's working or not working. Like, hey, it's tough to build links. Okay, how do I know a sale really happened? Well, we got to wire into where the orders happened and pull them out. Yeah. Ontraport, it's easy. You guys have everything in there. We can just pull it out and match it up with all our other algorithms. And then we can layer in data, and then the challenge becomes, how do you make it usable for an entrepreneur that's busy or that knows data is important but doesn't know quite what to do? Yeah. So we map the data to different points in what I call the customer journey, so that hey, based on this data, this is what works for cold traffic lead gen that leads to customers. Yeah. Or if I'm doing retargeting, this is what's making customers. Because the value, like if you go to Ontraport, you want to set up all the follow-up sequences to email the people over time, or subscription business, they become very valuable. And so then when you're trying to answer the question, where did I find my customers? It's not that easy to do unless you get Wicked Reports, of course.
Yeah, there you go. So, and the business has kind of exploded in the last year or so, really. Like it's like a slow build, and then all of a sudden, boom. Yep. Right. So what's the cause of that? What's working to grow that business right now?
So we use a couple things. We have Facebook for cold traffic lead gen and for content. We use AdWords for
Facebook paid ads.
Yep, paid ads. And we use organic ads. Our organic following isn't doing that hot, actually. And that's what I find. It's not even 80-20. It's almost 95-5. There's a couple things that just work for everyone's business. And for us, it's Facebook for content and for cold lead gen, and events work really well. Retargeting is AdWords. And then we have drip sequences that don't really convert, but they get people to book demos. And then I have people do live demos. So our sales cycle is pretty complicated. So we use Wicked Reports to grow Wicked Reports as well. So people have to see the software, know what it's going to do for them, and then they get excited.
Yeah, so it sounds like a pretty traditional process right now.
It is.
I mean, by traditional, not long-term traditional, but it's kind of like what's happening right now is Facebook ads to content to demos or whatever, and making it happen.
Still need the human touch.
Still need the human touch.
I loved having the pure SaaS, but people like to talk to people.
Complex sale, it's impossible, right? So and then it's just boom, and all of a sudden it's working.
It's working. People get real value. We get unsolicited testimonials a lot. It's been fun at this event. People come up, hey, I just want to tell you I love your software. I have 3 licenses and I'm using it, and I tell everyone. And because you don't normally hear that in a given day, if someone's using it, they're just using it and happy. You only hear from the people that are a little grouchy about something.
Right.
So wow, these people are telling us they love it. This is awesome. It's been really happy, real gratifying feeling.
Yeah, good. And so would you attribute the kind of hockey stick that happened in your business a year ago to these Facebook ads, or did something else happen that really shifted it?
It was a couple events. It was going to your event and going to the digital marketer events that people were excited, and people that the gurus, the marketers that people trust used us very early. That just kind of happened, and they would tell people, and then
word of mouth is just been the thing. Getting to some influencers and just letting them spread the good word about a great product.
That was what really started, and we were just strictly product focused and obsessed. We still are. We're still really data product guys that do marketing because that's what we know how to track. But we don't really know hey, this is what you should do in marketing. We just know how to figure out what's working for you. That's our specialty.
Good. And what are you kind of learning and excited about next? What's kind of the cutting edge for you personally?
A couple things. We got a customer journey ROI visual stuff coming in. People like visual. So we have a lot of visual reporting that you can then dive into the nitty gritty just when you need to. And we're doing more artificial augmented intelligence so that we detect what's right or wrong in your business and just bubble it up and not only tell you, hey, this is working or not, but here's what to do. To try to do that with literally no steps at all. Just literally log in and say, here's what to do, here's what to stop, here's what's working, here's what's so-so.
Right.
Those are the 2 big things I would say we're working on. It's just trying to get ahead of you, even having to think. As little thinking as possible. People just want to make money and do what they're good at.
Right.
And them combing through data, we make it nice enough so people are stick with us, but they prefer to not even have to do that. If we could just make their lives easier. Auto update spends on ads for people.
Whoa.
Yep.
Interesting. So
Facebook
in terms of your own experience of that, though, that's what the business is doing. You're actually designing these systems. So is that that's what you're cranking on every day, is trying to figure out how to make these things happen? Or
well, I'm really into personal development. I do a lot of intuitive training, and I have a theory that I'm actually presenting here tomorrow. It has to do with forces in play. So there's forces in play in anyone's life that kind of help evolve them forward or not. And my personal opinion, you're alive to try to evolve forward. And the business is kind of a microcosm of that. You're trying to evolve your business forward. There's forces in play in your market, in your product. How did you talk to people that affect, and most importantly, the force of time that affects your results. And so you got to be aware of those when you're taking any strategy and trying to use it in your business or in your life, kind of a life strategy to evolve. So it's like a stealth personal help speech hidden as a data speech. I didn't realize it until I built it. I was like, geez, I kind of think about this stuff personally too.
Yeah, so what are the forces at play for you right now?
Force in play for me right now is elevating my business vision and being clear about what I want it to be, which I'm figuring out. I've determined in the next 2 weeks to figure out, because we could go funding, we could go merge, we could go a lot of ways, and they all sound kind of fun. And I want the one that's the most fun, valuable, and profitable for everyone involved. I'm trying to keep something called a master intention, which is let everything be done in purpose. Let everything be done in service for the greater good of all, as an expression of life purpose and getting closer to the source. So if I can keep that intention without getting any ideas of how it has to happen, then it hopefully will unfold the way it needs to, which is a challenge, because you hear an advice, you want to do it, you want to you get your expectations in the way of what what you want from your actions. But if you just hold an intention of what you want to happen and then let the actions unfold more naturally, you're more likely to get the result you want or something better than what you started with. That's my opinion.
Interesting. Yeah, entrepreneurs tend to be action-oriented, right? And like drivers in a lot of ways. And so what I think you're saying is that there's something about kind of like stepping out of the way of what's meant to happen and really focusing on the end result that you're looking for and kind of like letting life fill in the gaps.
Yeah, it'd be like, okay, so we've met with Facebook like 4 times. That gets us excited. But then they drag their feet. They say, hey, we're going to fund all your stuff. You're going to be a millionaire or whatever, or more. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. Mm-hmm. So then instead of my expectation, my intention, which I just said the greater good of all, then I'm like, okay, so Facebook's going to buy me. Then I'm going to get this house. Then I'm going to do this. But that might not be what's going to happen. But now that I have that expectation, it blocks me from the other possibilities and opportunities because I let the expectation get in the way of me maybe taking other actions that could have opened other opportunities.
I see. Interesting. So staying action-oriented, staying goal-oriented and action-oriented, but making sure that you remember to let go of your expectations.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting. And I find that entrepreneurship has a way of sort of grinding our expectations out of us over time, right?
Like I mean, my self-help guru.
Yeah.
Fix the grind.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, like, after, many years of, we try a lot of things and a lot of things don't work. Mm-hmm. And you get to the point where you're like, you know what, we're going to try this and it may or may not work. And there's something about that attitude that's actually okay, that like, that allows you to continue to move forward because you're not so worried about failure because it just happens over and over again. And then in the midst of all that, you find successes.
I thought for sure a quiz funnel was going to beat me to the promised land. I was going to do a quiz. Everyone's going to love it. I was going to be rich. I did it. People said, oh, it's fun. And I had 2 people bought out of it. Yeah. It took a lot of time, and I was just obsessed with the idea a quiz was going to work, and that was it. And it was a waste of time. But then I'm like, whatever, just going to the next thing. It was just like a couple weeks burned that I shouldn't have burned, or I don't even know if I shouldn't have. But no, it was just another way to know, hey, well, that's just not, it's the process.
Another thing that's not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So how long have you been doing Wicked now?
Wicked's 2 years. I had a failed meditation site where I had spent all this money on masterminds and I thought I knew everything, and I went in there and had good meditation content, but just not a good thought out business process. And I was underfunded and I was having babies. Well, my wife was, and it was like bad timing. Mm-hmm. And so then I had to go back to work in data, and I ran data at apartments.com for a couple of years, but then I still had to pull it. Once you tasted the freedom, you want it. You know? It's just never going to work to be going in a place where you're just going to grind out a long haul and retire when you're 70 or whatever. That's just never going to work for me. Yeah. It never will again, I could understand working somewhere for a while, but not like just, hey, when I'm 70, then I can go be on a beach somewhere. I don't get that.
So if you could go back and like kind of give a piece of advice to your nascent entrepreneur self, what would that advice be?
It would have been to set up a paid funnel and try and get it to be profitable as soon as humanly possible, because then there's no denying the market. The market doesn't lie.
It's either they're going to, not.
Either they like your ideas and your prices, or they don't. Instead, you go off, you say, oh, I'm going to blog, I'm going to do this, you do all these things rather than actually just finding out, hey, does the market want my stuff at a profitable spread? Yeah. That's what I would have done right from the start.
So you're saying spend money actually on acquiring customers from day zero to see if it's a viable product. Don't waste your time with all the kind of like long play stuff like content marketing and all that stuff.
I would first make sure I had a business before I started doing all kinds of pretend business stuff. Because if you're doing a huge, great blog and you know what, people are reading it, but then they don't want to buy you whatever you have, then you don't have a business. You have a blog that people read for free. Yeah. So that's what I would have done different.
Yeah, interesting. So when you think about like long term, what do you want your legacy to be?
Well, I got patent pending on customer lifetime value by email and IP, which is hopefully I'll get this year. So that'd be one thing. Get that one sorted out. I think I want to try to figure out a way to use data to help people evolve. Would be my long term. I don't have that figured out yet, but that's what I want to be able to do, because I want to almost have an app where you can like and it's reading in all your physical and mental activities, and then you're journaling or something, and then it's piecing together what makes you helping make you a better person, gamify becoming a better person, whatever that means for you.
So, what do you feel like being a modern entrepreneur means?
I think it means you have a lot of grit because you need to just face the unknown and make decisions and have the courage to, as you said, fail often and not have it ruin your life over it. You know, you could just face the unknown and tackle it.
Yeah.
So that's what I think it comes down to, is a lot of courage and grit.
Well, cool. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah,
This has
it's
been
great.
great.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Sammy. It's fun.
Will you sign our wall?
Sure.
When we got started, we wanted to build a business that would allow us to be, flexible. Mostly because, unfortunately, like every year or two, something awful would happen and we'd go to hospital and we'd have to spend like 10 weeks there.
Yeah.
And so how the hell do you run a business that, that lets you be at the kids' hospital and not like at your desk?
Yeah.
And so we built it originally to, because we had to have flexibility, and now, thank God, he's in a great place. And
Amazing.
So now we're taking the same flexibility and we're going nomad next month.